A pleasant good afternoon. Rick, are you there?
I'm here.
Well, what an honor. You know, you're in the United States Virgin Islands. I don't know where you are at this point, but
I wish I was in the United States Virgin Islands.
Well, you know, we would love to have you come down here. We would certainly welcome you. Let's talk a little bit about the presidential race. We're talking about the primary. Obviously, a primary is an ideological struggle in many cases. How would you define yourself as different than, let's say, Mitt Romney? Obviously, the two of you are in a let's put it this way, in a challenge with each other. What is the difference between the two of you?
Well, I was just yesterday in Northern California, and the Jelly Bean Factory, which, as you may recall, was Ronald Reagan's favorite, jelly bean manufacturer.
Yep.
Yeah, he had the jar of jelly beans on his desk, and and so we went there, and it's a little bit of a shrine to Ronald Reagan. It's actually pretty cool, and so I made my speech yesterday, basically saying what I think is the reality, that if you look at how Reagan approached government, what he used to refer to as the three-legged stools of conservatism, we line up pretty much exactly with Reagan. I have been throughout my career someone who believes in peace through strength, a strong national security, and identifying evil and calling it for what it is. Someone who believes in the great traditional values of our country, that we need strong families and faith and respect for and the dignity of all human life and the potential of every person in America to be able to rise and succeed. And those basic core values, I've fought for and been successfully fighting for in my time in public life and afterwards. And then finally, on economic conservative, I'm not a big government conservative. I'm not someone who believes in government-run health care, whether at the federal or state level. Someone who doesn't buy in, as Reagan always warned against, these radical environmental groups that are trying to shut down the energy and manufacturing bases of our economy. And this is the I sort of went out and made the case. There's a Reagan conservative in this race, and then there's someone who referred to himself when he was running for office in Massachusetts that he doesn't want to go back to the years of Ronald Reagan, and that's not who he is. And now he's running for a Republican primary, and so he's now out there saying, "Well, I've changed my mind on all these things." But the bottom line is that he's not someone who's got the strong core convictions and a strong track record that you can trust to go out and push for limited government and strong national security and the values that made our country great.
All right, let me ask you. They always say, and it goes across party lines, the Democrats generally are obviously left of center. We're accused of being right at center. There always is a feeling that we've got to govern from the center. Probably Clinton was one of the best Republicans we ever had. I always say that. We had ourselves a situation where the House and Senate was under our control. This issue of shifting to the center, speak to me a little bit about this. And again, there appears to be a little tension between you and Mitt Romney regarding this issue. Is what you define as the center?
Well, what I believe in is that our country has shifted dramatically under this president, dramatically to the left, and with, of course, the imposition of Obamacare. You're now seeing this debates this week in the Supreme Court, where the government is having to make the case that the Constitution really has no limitation of power on the federal government, and that's a pretty dramatic shift in our country. That the Constitution is a document that really doesn't mean what it says, which is that there are enumerated powers, there are limited powers, and the government can't make you do whatever they want you to do. That we're a country that believes in free people, that we believe in limited government. And under President Obama, and I would argue what we saw Governor Romney do in the state of Massachusetts, we saw this huge, heavy hand of government come in and take over, I think, one of the most important sectors of the economy, and the one that is certainly the most personal one, which is your health and your life.
Sure.
And once government is in a position to take that over, then I think the game's set and match. And that's why, moving to the center and these types of things is not really moving to the center. It's moving away from the very center of our country, which is individual liberty.
All right, as you look at, and I'm just going to bring you to the Virgin Islands. I know that you're very familiar. You were in Puerto Rico a few weeks ago. But, we have Guam, American Samoa, Northern Marianas, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. We have lost more, men per capita in wars. There are many of the federal programs like SSI, issues like lifting the cap of Medicaid and Medicare. One of the most important things that we want to have available to us, and under the Bush administration, is a direct access to the White House on many of these common issues. Your thoughts about this if you became president?
Well, one of the things that I've said, and did radio interviews in Guam, and I obviously went down to Puerto Rico, and when I was in the United States Senate, I always felt it was an obligation, even though I obviously didn't represent any of the territories. I always felt it was an obligation as a United States Senator to listen to the concerns of the people from the territories and try to be if I could, in particularly in areas obviously where I found agreement or I found concerns that I thought were legitimate concerns from the territory, try to be advocates for them. And what I have found out, and when I was in the Senate, is that legitimately you feel like the old taxation without representation argument, and that you don't have a voice. Well, really, the voice of the territories, if there is a voice, is the President of the United States, because you're not representing a congressional district, you're not representing a state, and so the President and the Department of Interior should be really the voices and should be fighting in a budgetary process in particular, whether it's veterans benefits or whether it's reimbursements for Medicare, and they should be fighting to make sure that the territories are being treated fairly by a Congress, which of course doesn't have any interest in treating you fairly because you have no representation there that has any voting power. So that's why I've said, and I've been very public about this, and that I did pay attention to those issues and actually fought for changes within some of the territories for improvements in the relationship with Washington, and why I would do that, feel an obligation to do that as president.
Rick, also the projection of U.S. foreign policy, either in the Atlantic or Pacific, and again on our side of the hemisphere with the expansion again of the Panama Canal in 2014. From a logistical standpoint, the U.S. Virgin Islands is exceedingly important, as well as Puerto Rico. How do you look at this when you are looking at our territories, which are under tremendous economic stress? We just had the largest refinery, again, our refinery here close. We could have a potential of at least 18 to 20% unemployment in the Virgin Islands. Energy costs that can exceed, about 60 to 65 cents per kilowatt. If you have a territory that is faltering economically, isn't it in the best interest, again, on the executive side, that our neighbors look at us and we don't go down the tube financially? We need help. Well,
I'm curious, because we just lost a refinery in Pennsylvania, a Sunoco refinery in our state, and because of its reliance upon African light sweet crude. I don't know. Is that the same? What was the situation with?
No, ours was a relationship with Venezuela, which again isn't our biggest friend. Also, what has contributed to this is EPA. They socked them with a consent decree of $750 million, along with the fact that this refinery, and we're talking about competing throughout the world. Right now, most of this stuff is being refined in China and India. Yeah. And we can't compete as well as the discovery of natural gas and how to extract it.
Well, let me just say this: we would work very closely with the businesses and with the government on the islands to do what we can to get rid of these ridiculous environmental policies of this administration. To shut down a refinery in the Virgin Islands and allow refineries in China and India, which pollute at levels far exceeding what's ever occurring, I'm sure, in the Virgin Islands, just gives you how out of touch this president is and how out of touch the EPA is with what if the issue is you want things to be refined in an environmentally safe way, you want everything refined in the United States because we do it better than everybody else, and we do it more environmentally friendly than everybody else. You want more drilling for gas and oil offshore, and to again do it cleaner and safer than everybody else. And again, this administration doesn't get that. I certainly do, and I would be anxious to work with you to see if we can get that refinery going and maybe have some innovative ways of making it profitable.
All right, I want to thank you again. Some closing thoughts to the people of the Virgin Islands. I know how busy you are. And again, John Yob, I would like to thank for setting up this interview. This has really been an honor to chat with you, Rick. Well, go ahead.
Let me just say this. I've done interviews in almost all the territories now, and I've been to obviously to Puerto Rico, and I'm trying to express my commitment as president to all Americans, and making sure that all Americans, as you mentioned, who serve our country disproportionately so in our military, and who are proud to be Americans, and who I know are very frustrated that a lot of the apparatus of government does not work for them or doesn't seem to care about their problems and their concerns. I want to let you know that we will have a very open and active dialogue with not just me, but with the Department of Interior and with the other regulatory agencies, so we can make all of our territories prosperous and things and islands that we can be excited about showcasing the great contribution that you can make to our country.
Godspeed again, Senator Santorum, and I will see you in the convention. And thank you very much for the interview. This has been a delight talking to you.
My pleasure. It's been great to talk to the people on the island. Bye-bye.
Okay, we're going to take a break.